Hello and welcome back to the Robin Sealark channel. Today I'm working off a script, so you know it's going to be a good one maybe. I want to talk about dealing with the major setbacks of artists. And humans too. You don't have to create for me to care. I'm going to be sharing stories, career, and creativity stumbling blocks I haven't shared before, in the hopes that by sharing my personal hard experiences, it might empower you in your own hard experiences. And hopefully by me attempting to put words to my vulnerable confusion, it will give you some clarity of your own. But most importantly, I want to prepare you so you don't lose critical faith in yourself when you hit your own setbacks. I want you to expect mistakes and hard times so that you can see them as part of your larger story and not the end. So welcome to my story time in paint. I'm on a 5x7-inch kick painting landscapes with interesting lighting, so that time lapse will be playing and available for sale at robinsealark.com. In order to talk setbacks, I need to bring you back to when I began traveling into the past for a recap. What led me to first become an art teacher was an increasing panic over my ability to support myself on a fine arts degree. What led me to quit my first job teaching was following my ex to New York so he could start a oyster harvesting business. So there, 7 years ago, I entered the full-time art arena in full swing. Over the following years of self-employment, I earned income through various means, predominantly including YouTube ad revenue, painting sales, sponsorship deals, Patreon subscriptions, art coaching, merchandise sales, and creating my oil painting book. Every year brings new challenges and questions. Learning to operate a business, develop my art skills, and form my young adult brain was not seamless. When I went full-time, I'd already begun to develop a small presence online and was selling quite casually through Etsy, Facebook, and art fairs. But in my first year, I needed to learn new skills in order to do things like launch my e-commerce/portfolio website and learn how to create and edit video content. In my first year on YouTube, I was really lucky to hit a tipping point and surpass 100,000 subscribers, which really increased my earning potential as an independent artist. Early on, I worked with singular purpose: to secure an amount of notoriety for myself in my field and to become a self-sufficient painter. I skipped sleep like a real grind set guru, but through those years, I credit luck a lot in part because I've witnessed how hard work and recognition or financial success don't always come hand in hand, especially in a creative or gig economy based market where some people put in really long hours and never find financial sustainability. Luck had it that I would begin to see my personal goals fulfilled, but what I wasn't prepared for was to realize I wasn't on a fixed trajectory of continual increasing success. And starting out in 2016, I really had no idea what the next 7 years would bring me. While I worried and climbed through early artist struggles, I felt pretty sure of myself in other ways. I had a very fixed idea of my eternal purpose, who I was, where I came from, what I expected out of life. But what I didn't realize is that I would begin to question myself in the deepest ways as I reached the height of my YouTube popularity. Fielding an identity crisis while welcoming hundreds of thousands of new audience members is something I will likely cringe about until my end of days. Artist setbacks can relate back to personal and professional struggles. They're often interconnected because when you're not at your strongest, it becomes much harder to work efficiently. And because creativity is so self-directed, it can feel like a harsh reflection of your personal failings or inadequacies if you're not careful to dodge the deep despair and imaginations of towering hurdles that send you recoiling in horror from trying. While I've had various forms of setbacks over the years, the experiences I want to talk about today relate to my current hurdles as an artist that I'm working through. This anecdote comes from my 2019 trip to Playlist Live, a YouTube and TikTok event before I knew what TikTok was. I was on a trip meeting with some of the prominent artist YouTubers of that era. It was super awesome to meet them. We collaborated on videos, talked about different behind the scenes field advice, got into the featured creator party thanks to a couple of interested talent agents. One day, while we were at lunch in the event hotel with said managers, the exuberant wails of young people began to fill the atrium. Suddenly, a flash of an e-boy came sprinting past us down the hallway, while rallied cries of fans came pouring behind him in the form of a teenage army that sprinted past us in numbers I have never since seen. I don't know if it was magic, but that e-boy seemed to summon every single young playlist attendee in the building into one majestic flock, and they truly flew that day. The hotel itself ripped from the very foundations we were resting on, and we were airborne, sustained by the new and seemingly infinite resource that is big TikTok energy. Just kidding about the flight thing. But the excited mob rush was a different side of content and influencer world than I'd seen, and it confused me. Ultimately, what gave me an internal crisis at that time was A, my personal home life was an absolute mess then, and B, I started questioning whether I was straying from my original art career goals into a content career that I didn't quite understand. The trip came after the Adobe 99U conference I was a part of, which is conceptually a totally different event type, but it left me with a confusing mental comparison on how I envisioned the future of my work. 99U's focus was on creative professional development and network. I met a lot of different types of creatives that exposed me to varied professional attitudes, fields, and goals. While I had some of that experience at Playlist too, I didn't know how to unpack the differences or what each meant about my long-term career wants. So we're still in 2019, and when I got home from the Playlist trip, my domestic partnership really began to crumble, and a couple of serious family traumas took place that seriously destabilized me. I had gone through a divorce while on YouTube and also navigated a religious transition, and through that I'd been able to hold myself together, but after things around 2019, I just was struggling to cope well. Once I began getting professional help to confront certain life experiences, I changed, and so did my art and content, and gradually but slowly I began to see decreases in my business. Basically, with my business model, when everything's functioning high, everything's producing for each other, and there's a domino effect, so if things are functioning a bit lower, it impacts all of my revenue streams ultimately. I'd been overworking for years and losing touch with my personal grounding, and so I started taking breaks from my regular workload and producing videos less frequently, and I would watch my numbers drop. But I would pep talk myself into accepting it, because part of change is accepting consequences, and while I wasn't sure how I wanted to adjust my life and work to a new balance, I knew I needed more time alone to work on myself and figure out what I was working for. Sometimes I think it's hard to decipher the good from the bad in your past, and I needed a period to make mistakes with trial and error to give myself new opportunities and just accept that I was a little bit lost. While I took breaks from weekly uploads, I adjusted to lower income. I got therapy. I wrote my oil painting book. I moved in with family for a time so I could get additional emotional support, and I learned to focus deeper on painting and tried to slow down enough to figure out my internal problems and better boundaries. I was really misguided, depressed, and angry for a while. I don't know if it had to go down as painfully as it did for me. I know I made my life harder a number of times through bad choices, but my darkest point is also where I found my light at the end of the tunnel. In 2022, I got sad enough to realize I was done deconstructing my life and needed to focus on what life meant to me instead. It was the year I was the most absent online, and the year I also decided to start rebuilding myself. By losing strength from my business, I got back into my beginner's mentality. I started exploring my options again and taking steps to open new doors. I think I've mentioned before, in New York, I was looking into teaching again and what steps I would need to take for that route. So I also looked into continued education, though I was rejected from a master's program I applied to, and I moved back to Utah to recommit to a full-time work schedule. I had dropped down to working much more part-time, and I was dipping into savings. I'm on track to make more content this year in 2023, and I'm having a wonderful time with my Patreon group connections. Ayo. I'm actively working on painting series, and I'm beginning to negotiate cool art contracts again, as well as upping the amount of of commissioned work that I'm taking on and finding commissions that really excite me, projects that make sense for my style and interests, working with my ideal types of clients, and stretching myself in ways I really am excited about. I found myself in some of my earlier mentalities when it comes to hope, perseverance, and openness to adapt, as well as faith in myself to do things I need to do to have the life I want. And also, I do have the life that I want now. Recently, I've earnestly been seeking after goals again, and I have the fuel I need to succeed. But in this process, I've also ended up in probably the happiest place I've been in my adult life. I don't make tons of money, but I certainly have enough. I feel really secure and I have the things that I need. I've coupled with an amazing boyfriend who's the most healing, understanding, kind person I could have hoped to have met. We've been together almost 2 years now. I adopted a dog and we also have 2 cats. It's a really happy home. We also picked up music and are writing with our band of very nice, cool, fun people. I like having projects that I can do with my friends. I also worked on art I really liked this year, and I don't know what things that I'm trying to do will ultimately succeed or fail, but I can see my goals again, and the things that stress me out are so much better than the things that used to stress me out. I have a more simple life. Even if I lost some numbers or relationships along the way, I feel more in control of shaping my future, and I'm starting to realize it's okay to do your own thing and to just connect with the people that you should connect with and be cool with boundaries and other people doing their own things. I think that it's easy when you decide to change your life to get sucked into the painful and confusing hurdles that you encounter along the way, because it's such a vulnerable time when you're open to your faults. At least for me, they've been hard to look at, but as soon as you do, as soon as I did, it gives you the ability to start working through them and build your trust that you're able to work through them. These days, I call people that I can trust and I look up to. I get them to tell me that I can enjoy the labors of maturing adulthood and finding pride in the work I do for little healthy things. It helps me push back when something happens and puts me back into a time when I actually had a lot less control, but I can see I'm not there anymore and I don't have to be, as long as I protect my choices and work to be a person with strong character. Reputation and outward success are not whole indicators of personal fulfillment, and being willing to examine what priorities or ideas might actually be getting in the way of you really being who you want to be is hard and I think noble work. Sometimes growth and success will surprise you in how they look because you've spent so long imagining them looking differently to you. I had in my head for a while a version of success that kept me from getting support from the right people and asking for and accepting help, because I just thought I had to do it all by myself or else I would die. Ultimately, I believe we are adaptable and capable enough to find and create joy and to do hard things, as long as we accept the journey and prepare for some unexpected turns. I hope that this helps. I'm Robin Sealark. You can find my apparel, my merchandise, and my paintings on robinsealark.com. You can check out my Patreon group. Robin Sealark is how you'll find me on all social platforms. Instagram, that's probably my favorite, or Patreon if you want to do chats with us for $5 on Zoom. It's like an artist chat group, critique group. It's fun. I really like my patrons. So yeah. See you in the next one. Oh, if you could like the video, that would be nice. Thanks.